All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. I am really excited to have Margy Jackson with me here on the show today. And we've kind of been following each other on social media for a while, seeing a lot of Margy's posts about her upcoming book, I Am Enough. So I'm really, really excited to finally meet her for the first time, sit down with her and hear her story. So welcome, Margy.
G'day, everyone. How are you? Lovely to meet you, Ellie.
So nice to meet you too. And good day. That's like exactly what I would imagine an Australian to say.
The Americans love it for some reason. Last week I was talking to Jeff and he said, everybody's saying, who was that crazy Australian? He's so funny. I had to repeat some of my sayings over and over because I think I said something like, when I used to get pissed as a fart, and he said, what was that? And I said, I'm going to write that down. It means being drunk in Australia. So we have a lot of slang. So if I say something you don't know what it is, ask me to translate.
Oh, I love it. Well, one of the amazing things about working abroad and being an expat internationally is that I work with people from all over the world, like Australian colleagues, British, Canadian, American. And so I've come to, like, the first time I came here, there were things that I just didn't understand. And it's interesting because then you start to integrate, by being around other people, you start to integrate these words into your own, like, terminology, So I'll say like, oh, I'm going to take the lift up to my flat. And like in Canada, you'd say like, I'll take the elevator to my apartment. And it's funny how you just kind of take on these things. So anyway, I think I know some of the Australian slang just from working with Aussies, but I will let you know if anything goes over my head.
Okay. Well, I had to educate Jeff on, he said to me, do you live near Melbourne? And I said,
Melbourne.
No, I live near Melbourne. So it's Melbourne, not Melbourne. And what was the other thing he said? Aluminum. And I said, no, it's aluminium. and we call it, you say pavement and we say path. So there's a lot of different, but we know we speak English. We both speak English.
Yeah.
So that's the main.
So that's the main thing.
Sort of.
So tell me a bit about yourself. I know that you were a teacher for many years, right? What did you teach?
I was an art specialist. I taught music, drama, visual art for most of my career, and primary, so elementary in your lingo, for 32 years. Yeah, interestingly enough, when I was young, I always had an interest in music, and I was in a rock band back in my youth, and that's what I wanted to do, actually. I really wanted to be a singer.
Wow.
My grandmother, who was Scottish, lived next door, and she wasn't too keen on me running off to be a rock chick. So I had to do something, a little bit better than that. So I ended up going to uni, and I got my teaching degree, and I was a teacher for a long time. But I was very relieved when it was over. I always found it very stressful. I was always very anxious. Probably wasn't the best choice of profession for someone who suffers from depression and anxiety. Since I've finished, which is 4 years ago now, I've been a lot happier. A lot happier.
Yeah.
So if you have a passion, my advice would be, if you have a passion in something, follow it. Don't let anybody tell you, you have to be this because I said so. Yeah. I say that to my kids all the time, my own children. I say, you do, what makes you happy, because you have to spend a lot of your life in your own profession. So you've got to enjoy it.
I was a teacher too. Did you know that?
Oh, yes, you were too. Grade 1. I was reading about you last night. Done the research, I have.
Yeah. So I was a teacher for 6 years. That is what originally brought me out to the Middle East. And I'm the exact same as you. Like, I ended up choosing this career because, parents and society, everyone said, you need a normal, stable job. And ever since I quit teaching, so I quit in June, as was my last month of work this past year. And like, I just can never imagine myself going back at this point. Like, and I can't believe I did it for as long as I did. Like, it's just, I completely know what you mean. It's so high stress. There's so many plates you're spinning, and it just felt like no one was ever happy. Like, so you probably weren't teaching during COVID then, right? If you ended 4 years ago.
That would have finished me off altogether. The rest of
Yeah.
my family, my own daughter's a secondary school teacher. I don't know how they're doing it. It's just,
Yeah.
she had to plan last week for online teaching, and then if lockdown finishes, we don't know, we're living in limbo here, into back to the classroom. So double planning, if you can imagine. I just said, I don't know how you're doing it. The teachers have done an incredible job over COVID.
Superheroes, seriously.
They are. They are. It's a very, very stressful job.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't miss it. No, someone asked me that yesterday, and I said, no. Someone said, oh, you know, like usually when you finish teaching here, you go back and you do emergency teaching or, relief teaching. And someone said, oh, you only do relief teaching. I said, no, what are you Why are you going to? No, I'm done. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got that too. Actually, the school had asked me to come in and sub a few times, and I was planning on doing it. And then my yoga schedule just fully booked, and they just had no availability. So yeah, I haven't been back since June, and it's been really good. I'm really happy.
Yeah, my last day was parent teacher interviews, and I didn't know actually at the time. I didn't know it was my last day, and then I went back into school holidays, and I went back into school to do some work, as you do. These people who say, oh, you teachers, you work from 9 till 3:30, rubbish, and the rest. It's during the holidays, went into school, sat behind my desk. I looked up and I thought, I can't be here anymore. I just cannot do this anymore. I stood up, and my colleague in the adjoining classroom, she said, oh, did you leave something in your car, Margy? And I said, no. I said, I'm done. I said, what do you mean? I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. And she came into the room and she said, what, you done? What do you mean? I said, I'm finished. That's it. I've had it. Can't do it anymore. So I just really hit the wall. I just knew that I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
My little Lottie, come here, my little dog. Come here.
Aww.
I'll pass her on the head too. Come here.
So tell me about your drinking. When did you start drinking?
Let me see. I went to a barrel back in the 70s in Australia. People used to have big barrels of beer in their backyard, and you'd all rock around and you'd drink beer out of these barrels until the barrel tap whistled and the barrel.
We call it kegs, like a keg party.
We call it a barrel. Right. So I was 14 and I went with my friends to this barrel, and I'd never drank beer before, ever. I was a good girl before that. And I started drinking, and peer group pressure, come on, have another one. I started feeling a bit ill, and, before you knew it, I was lying in someone's bed inside. But what I found when I started drinking, because of the anxiety, and it just sort of melted it away, I felt so much more, it was a relief when I started drinking, I think. And so I was very young. And the interesting thing with me is that I never ever drank while I was performing. I don't know why. I look back and I think, you drink the rest of the time, but I just thought, no, I don't want to get up there on stage, half pissed and make a fool of myself. So, I never drank when I was performing, but during my adolescence, I found too that my depression and anxiety got a lot worse. My parents are Scottish, and we went back over to Scotland for a trip, the whole family. And I loved it in Scotland, and I didn't really want to come back to Australia. So I just felt more at home, over in Scotland with my family in Scotland, and I was only 12, so I had to come back. And I wasn't happy, and I didn't like my secondary school, and just a whole lot of factors. When I was writing the book, Jenny Valenti, in her book Woman of Substances, she says that sometimes it's a combination of environmental factors and personality traits that lead someone into addiction. And I think when I look back, I think I had all of those things. I had environmental stress. There's a history of depression and anxiety in my family. Yeah. And I've been doing a lot of reading recently. And addiction is huge, or depending on alcohol or drugs, is a huge part in addiction for people with anxiety and depression. So I guess I was just unlucky. Yeah. But then, you try and manage it. I tried to manage it. At certain points in my life where I was under a lot of stress, it got worse. When I had my first child, it was a very traumatic delivery, and after that, I just lost the plot. And looking back now, it terrifies me to think that wasn't picked up. I can remember going to the doctor saying, I'm really scared. I'm terrified of hurting the baby. I feel like I'm walking through pea soup. I think I've got postnatal depression. And he said, oh, you'll be right, love. You know, we all struggle a bit when we have a baby. You know, you'll give it a few weeks. And I was like, really? I remember that year, and it was just horrible. I hope that it's diagnosed a lot better these days than it was back then. Yeah.
I've had similar experience to that, in that for a long time I was, Lottie.
I'll pick her up. Come here, Lottie. Come here. Come and say hello. She's just going to bath now. Come on. I gave her some food too.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. Hello.
So
It's
cute.
Margy Jackson. Now, you be good.
So
Stay
cute.
there.
I was just going to share that I had really similar experiences at a young age, identifying my mood disorder and having doctors or people belittling me, putting me down, like just making me question my own awareness. And I do think the world is progressing in that. I do think people are getting diagnosed quicker, thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's taken a long time though, but slowly, yeah. But at any times of stress, I notice that it gets a lot worse. And over my lifetime, I've been married and divorced twice, and a few other things have happened to me, and I noticed at those times in my life, I definitely drank a lot more. Just because I saw it as a way of coping.
Yeah.
But in reality, it made it a lot worse. It made it a hell of a lot worse. So, yes, I'm glad those days are over.
How did your drinking escalate over time?
As I said, I think teaching didn't help. I can remember coming home from school, and the first thing I do is go to the fridge and get a glass of wine. Really, I saw it as my reward at the end of the day, my crutch really. And because my depression and anxiety went undiagnosed for a long time, it was only the first time I received medication was in 1998.
Wow.
So it had gone for a really long time. I don't know how I did it really. When I look back, I think I went to my doctor one day in 1998, and she said to me, and she's still my doctor to this day, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm okay." Like put on the good face and try and said, "How are you really?" And I just burst into tears. I just spent 3 hours. She cancelled all of her appointments, and I just cried and spoke to her and told her what was going on in my life, and she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that I'd under that much pressure for so long, and that was the first time I'd been diagnosed. So, but then I was prescribed antidepressants, and I don't think they really did their job because I was still drinking at the time, so they wouldn't have been very effective. So really, when I think about it, I've been sober for 342 days today.
Congratulations.
This is the first time that those tablets have worked.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Really good.
And it sounds like we had a similar experience in that too. I was prescribed medication and continued drinking for maybe 5 years, and the meds weren't working. And so I was still continuing to struggle. And it was only when I got sober that things finally started to get better.
Yeah, same. Exactly the same. Yeah. And when you think about how many people that would be out there who suffer from depression, anxiety, and drink as their way of coping, I mean, it's really scary.
So many people.
Definitely.
So you're 342 days. So tell me about, what was the turning point when you decided to quit drinking?
All right. I have to backtrack a little bit. I got into a new relationship with someone, and we were engaged to be married, and I was still drinking. In fact, I was hiding it from him. didn't like drinking very much, and I had my bottle stashed around the place, and I tried really hard. He said to me, "Oh, look, I think you're an alcoholic and you have to go to AA." So off I went at his insistence. I went to AA and for about 2 years. And look, AA is fabulous. AA has helped a lot of people to get sober. But look, it just wasn't my thing. And because I live in a small rural town, there was no anonymous for me. My car's fairly, everyone knows everybody, and the car would be out the front and, Margy's car's out the front of AA, so that didn't help. Didn't help the whole trying to get sober thing. So it was a bit of a rocky relationship, and he ended up, the end of 2018, he ended up throwing me out of the house that we shared, and
wow.
I came back to Warrnambool where I live and stayed with my elderly parents, and it was a pretty dark time. I found this place to live and came here, and it was a really lonely, sad time. I was still drinking. My doctor said, I think that you need to, do a medical detox, and because there was no way I could moderate at that point. I was just well in the clutches of alcoholism by then. And I did that. I went to the local hospital and I did a medical detox. And I cut down a lot after that, but I was still drinking. Then COVID hit, and I live alone, so it was a really lonely time. And I started thinking about, what do you want the rest of your life to look like? Do you want to sit here drinking yourself to death and patting Lottie, or what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And it would flow, it was like this little flame sort of burning away. And then one night, about this time last year, I thought to myself, I wonder what would happen if I don't drink tonight. I wonder if the sun will rise tomorrow, and I'll just give it a try. And my daughter was coming for dinner, and she never liked me drinking, and I've been hiding it from her for a long time. And I didn't drink, and I went to bed. I can remember lying there thinking, gee, this is weird, it's just strange. So I should have taken Lottie to my mother's house. Yeah, and then the next day I'd read This Naked Mind, and I thought I'll give the 30-day alcohol experiment a go. And I just kept going. I felt so good that I just thought, I'm going to keep this going. And I never looked back. So I think I owe Annie Grace my life, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And now you're almost at a year. That's huge.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, what am I going to do? I have to celebrate it. I was thinking about getting a tattoo, but I don't know what sort of a tattoo. I'll have to look into that. I might get a tattoo on the bum or something. We'll see.
I remember I did it was right around when I started the Mindful Life practice, and I did the Zoom party for my 1 year sober. And the nice thing about my anniversary of sobriety happens in the same week as my birthday. So it's just a party. Birthday party, sober party, all one. Yeah.
Great. It's good. And there's just so much more joy in life, I think, sober. I mean, there's no missing out. There's some people say to me, how did you do it? And I think really it starts with being honest with yourself. Until you're absolutely honest with yourself, you're not going to be able to do it. If you're not admitting it to yourself. Speaking of my doctor, you'd have your blood work done and so on. And I said, did you know that I that I lied to you, basically? She said, of course, you've got elevated liver enzymes, all your blood work comes back. Yeah, they know. You don't get away with it medically.
And so when you started sobriety, what were the hardest parts?
Well, I think changing your routine, like the wine, which and I have had a long-standing date for about 30 years. So, learning to, what do I do at 1 o'clock? Trying to put other things into my life. So I think I started off, I'd just go walking, instead of, it's 5 o'clock, better have a wine, So I'd go for a walk. I had a few months of making these really elaborate mocktails with fruit juice and strawberries and little umbrellas. That's my treat, you know. I think you've still got to have this thing in your head of you're treating yourself. But I think because you feel so much better in yourself, you know, you haven't got you're sleeping better, you like yourself better, you haven't got that anxiety, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you think, oh God, who did I call last night? You know, who did I call last night on the phone? Where's my phone? You know, who did I text last night? What happened? I'd never ever want to feel like that again.
Totally. And what were the best parts of sobriety?
Oh, just I said to my doctor last week, actually, I said, this is the first time that I've felt really authentically me since before I started drinking, which is a long time ago. And I said, I remember who I was. Yeah, so I just being yourself again, because alcohol masks a lot of your feelings and, you know, my family, you know, because it's been COVID, they probably haven't seen me as much as I used to. But I had a couple with my sister the other day, and she just said to me, you just seem so different, you know, you seem like I knew this would happen. I could tell Mum. She barked the whole way through She's very sweet though.
And so tell me about your book. So what inspired you to start writing your book?
All right. So when COVID time, I got pretty bored. I was living here by myself. I was cleaning in my bookcase one day, and I came across all my old diaries, a bit like Peggy. And I used to keep diaries as a way of, you know, when things were really bad, I would write. And I found them, and I sat down, I started reading through them, and I thought, oh, you know, you could invent this stuff. This would make a great basis for a book. So after I got sober, I sat down one day, would have been about November last year, and I started writing, and it basically just poured out of me. It just basically, my story just poured out of me. It was almost sometimes a bit spooky, like I wasn't even writing it. It was like, you know, something was like I was a conduit, really. It was really funny. And I wrote the original manuscript in 37 days. 37 days. I know, no one writes a book in 37 days. I don't think Charles Dickens even ever wrote a book in 37 days. But it was sort of, I'll tell you a funny story. When my grandmother, who I was very close to, passed away, I went to see a clairvoyant. It was back in 1995. And the clairvoyant, I didn't tell the clairvoyant anything about myself, anything. My name, what I did for a living, nothing. And I walked in, and we're talking, and the clairvoyant said, "Oh, you're a writer." And I said, and she said, I said, "I've been writing reports today." No. She said, "You're a writer." She said, "You're going to write a book one day." And she said, "It's going to do really well." And I laughed my head off, and I said, I had two small children then. My children were 5 and 3 of them. And I said, "Look, I haven't got time to go to the toilet, you know, let alone write a book. And I don't think that's going to happen." Anyway, while I was writing the book, I remembered it, and I thought, oh God, I'm writing the book. It came true, like 25 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's incredible.
It's creepy. It's weird. Yeah.
Wow.
Meant to be. Don't know. But everything seemed to fall into place. You know, when I was writing the book, everything seemed to. It was just sort of like it was like just purging. It's like purging everything that I'd pressed down for so long. And there were things that I wrote that I'd never told anybody. There were a few things in the book that I'd kept to myself, and when I got them out, it was such a relief. You know, it was really cathartic to just get them out of my body.
Yeah.
A couple of times I had to go and sit somewhere else and just, you know, cry, and you know, and I had to have some very honest conversations with my mum and my children. So they were at the start. They were a little bit anxious about what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And take them time. You know, they're slowly sort of coming around. And that, you know, because I've said to them, look, I have to speak my truth. You know, I'm not asking anyone permission to tell my own story. And it's probably the first time in my life that I've stood tall and said, you know, like my daughter said the other day, I think this was the last hurdle for you, Mum, in being your authentic self. But I think you had to go through everything that you went through, and this as well, this is the final thing where you're standing up and you're saying, no, I have to speak my truth. I have to be my authentic self. And it just feels so great finally to do that. In my marriages, I suffered fairly badly from domestic. That was a very bad situation. I've just been watching on Netflix. Made.
I just watched it.
I had to stop watching it. The first episode, I just had to stop. So wonderful these days that it's being spoken about, not just the physical abuse. I love the scene where she goes into the caseworker and the caseworker says, "Have you filed a police report?" And she says, "And tell them what? That he didn't hit me."
Yeah.
The mental abuse and the emotional abuse and the social abuse and the financial abuse is it's worse probably, because you just never know. At least when they're angry, you're going to cop a beating, but the rest of the time you just walk around with eggshells. I'm so glad that finally it's being portrayed accurately. As hard as that is to watch, I think that's going to open up lots of good conversations. Yeah. So I've sort of been fairly bumpy road, to say the least. But it's wonderful to be at the other end now and to be able to turn that around and say, if you've got hope, and if you can ask for help, which is a very big part of it. I was always so ashamed and embarrassed about, the drinking and about domestic violence that I didn't tell anybody, and it nearly cost me my life. Like, I was nearly killed, and it was only my daughter saying, "Look, Mum, I can't sit by and watch this anymore. You've got to tell the family, or I will." It's really the ultimatum, and so she must have thought about it, because there's no way I would let her do that. So the following week, I caught up with my mum and my sister, and I said, "Look, this is what's happening," and a week later, I was out of there. But it's asking for help. And that's hard. That shame and the fear and the embarrassment. It's really difficult. I remember my caseworker saying to me, domestic violence doesn't discriminate. Just because you're a teacher and you've got a degree and you live in a nice house and everything seems lovely on the surface. He said it doesn't discriminate, and so true. Yeah. So I can remember at school being on yard duty and, a boiling hot day, and one of my colleagues saying, "No, there's 40 degrees, take off your cardigan." And I couldn't, I had bruises all the way up and down my arm. So, and I never said anything, and so looking back now, I just think, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I went and pretended that everything was okay when it was far from okay. Yeah.
We're in survival mode. Yeah. Wow, Margy, there's so many parts of your story that resonate with me. So much I can connect with and everything you shared. I can't wait to read your book. When is your book being released?
We're at the final manuscript. You keep. I listened to Peggy's interview last night, I think, and she said, "Oh, you keep thinking, I could change this or I could put that in." It's a case of saying, that you've got to say that's enough. For this book, it's done. And I keep doing that too. I just gave the very final manuscript to my mum to read. She wasn't real keen about me doing it, to be honest. And I said to her, "Look, Mum, to put your mind at ease, why don't you read it and do me the honour of being the first person to read it from start to finish." And she just gave it back to me this morning, actually.
Wow.
I walked in and she didn't say anything. She just came over to me and she just, go cry. She came. She said, "I'm so proud of you. That would have been so hard to do." She said, "You're just amazing. You're going to help so many people. People who just think that's their lot. They've got to put up with that." I watched you. I'm your mum, and she said, "I've seen you. I didn't know a lot of those things. I didn't know that was and to be having to go through all of that, and to be able now to turn around and say, it doesn't have to be like that always." It was pretty emotional. I'm tearing up now. Yeah, with emotion.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah, so I, although when I said to her, would you like to read the final manuscript? And I'm thinking because they were all a bit iffy about it. Anyway, because my mum and dad passed away, but they're Scottish, and my cousins in Scotland have helped me with the Scottish translations for some of the dialect. I can speak with a Scottish accent if you like, you can. Been over there a few times, I can do it. I can just slip in and out of it. Something. I had a Scottish accent before I went to school. And anyway, I said to someone yesterday, I've created a monster. She keeps messaging me saying, that's wrong. It should be spelt like this. And I'm like, it's really great that she's reading it. But I said to her, well, I'll put you on the payroll as a sub-editor. And I said to my real editor, I've created a monster. My mother. No, she said it's wonderful. It's absolutely, I've never read anything like it. They say that truth is stranger than fiction. And one of my friends said, who's going to play me in the miniseries? I have to think about that. I reckon Rebel Wilson might be it. Rebel. Yeah. like Rebel Wilson. Oh.
Well, I'm super, super excited to read it. I just feel like there's so much that so many of the podcast listeners can connect with, and so much I can connect with, so much that resonates with me. So when I post the podcast episode, I'm going to share the link to your website, and then anyone who's listening can, I think you have somewhere on the page where people can subscribe to get updates. So
yeah, well, if you put your details in, then I can let you know when the book's going to be released. I'm hoping end of year. But as I say, it's something, you keep thinking, I want to change this, or I've got to stop. I've got to say that's enough. Did I tell you that I had some really good news a couple of weeks ago? I emailed Annie Grace because I owe her my sobriety, really. And I just said, I'm writing a book. Is there any chance that you would endorse it? And thinking, no way in hell is that going to happen. And about 2 weeks ago, I got an email from this Naked Mind. I'm thinking, what's that? And I opened it up, and she's endorsed the book. Unbelievable. I think I've got it here, what she said. What did she say? Well, I had it here yesterday, but it was anyway, it's on the website. If you go in,
that's incredible.
I know. And Claire Pooley, Sober Diaries. I was following her on Sober Mummy, and I said something one day on her Sober Mummy side, and she replied, and she said, are you Australian? I said, yeah, bloody oath I am. And she said, you're hilarious or something. And I said, oh, thanks. I said, listen, Claire, I'm writing a book. I said, I noticed there's lots of American quick lit, lots of English quick lit, not a lot of Australian quick lit. I'm already writing my second book, which is about our drinking culture in Australia, about halfway through, called Down the Hatch. That'll be a couple of years down the track. Anyway, I said to her, would you endorse my book? Thinking, no way. Yeah, she did. She did. So for me, I'm just an ordinary person who lives in Australia. It shows you that dreams do come true. Like after Annie endorsed the book, it just went crazy. Like I said on something on my website, like if anyone asks me a question or I will message you back. I spent 2 days trying to answer all the messages. My daughter's saying, I think you're going to have to do a blanket, like, thank you very much for contacting me. And I just wanted to be authentic, because I am a genuine person. I said that. I might have to change it because you can't really answer 400 messages a day. But I'm just blown away. I'm really blown away. I had a Zoom meeting with my publisher on Thursday, and he told the office about Annie, and that they all stood up. You put the camera around, and they all stood. They were all clapping. The whole office was really funny. But I've got to keep pinching myself. It seems a bit surreal. Ordinary.
Well, that's so amazing.
Very humble. Yeah.
It's so incredible. Honestly, you've achieved so much in like less than a year sober. So you should be really, really proud of that.
Yeah, hard to believe. I mean, this time last year, if someone had have told me that I'd write a book and Annie Grace had endorsed it and Claire Pooley would endorse it, I would have said, what planet are you living on? Like, I would have poured another glass of wine and gone and sat in the lounge and said, Yeah, there is so much more to life. When you climb out of that bottle, there is so much more to life. Yeah, it's great.
So I have one more question for you, Margy. If you had any advice for anyone who wants to quit drinking, what would the advice be?
I would advise anyone who is starting to question their drinking and know that, if you can't think, well, I can take it or leave it. If you're going into that grey area of drinking, I'd read as much as possible. I'd read This Naked Mind. It's fantastic. You plug to Annie there. I do the 30-day alcohol experiment just to see if you can do 30 days without drinking. I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could do 1 day without drinking, but it's incredible. And just educate yourself as much as possible. I was saying to someone today that, when you give up, I don't know about you, it's everywhere. I live around the corner from me is a Dan Murphy's, which is a liquor supermarket, basically. And any time of the day or night, the car park is full. Like it could be Monday morning, Tuesday afternoon, it doesn't matter. And I'm thinking, what if there was a supermarket just for soup? What if there was a supermarket that just sold, something? It's incredible. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think we're bombarded. We're just bombarded by alcohol, and it's just poison actually in pretty bottles. When you think about it and you educate yourself, you're putting poison into your body. And I think just to see whether giving your body a break, just to see if you can do it. So educate yourself as much as possible. Yeah, I think that would be my advice. And ask for help. I'm hopeless at asking for help. And I don't think it's something you can do by yourself. You need a lot of support. But when I joined the online forum, today, This Naked Mind online forum, the people are they're fantastic. They're just so supportive. And it's 24 hours a day. You don't need to go off to a meeting or, I found AA challenging. It's great, but it wasn't my thing. There are other options. It's not just AA. You've got so many options these days.
Well, Margy, thank you so much. It was honestly so wonderful to meet you and to hear your story. And I just can't wait to read your book. So thank you so much for taking the time to being on the show. And I hope we catch up again soon.
Sorry about Lottie's barking.
All good. This is a pet-friendly podcast.
She's fast asleep now, so monkey. But she's lovely to meet you, Alex, and good luck with your move to Bali too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.